Hi, everybody. What I want to talk about now is how you attract top talent to your organization. So, yes, it's a two-way street, and yes, we'll talk about how you can choose the best enablement folks out there. That's one thing. But the other side of that coin is what today is about. So today is about how do you get them to want you? How do you attract the best enablement folks out there? So a couple of things I think about. The first and foremost is, as you start to have discussions with them formally in interview process or otherwise, you want to start to highlight how you are as the executive sponsor. So if you're true partners as you're a CRO or VP of sales and they're the head of enablement, how are you partnering with them? And you really want to show them very specific examples from your past where you were an executive sponsor and what that looked like in action, because every enabled person, as they step into a new role, or they're talking about a new role, they're a little bit skeptical. They're not sure that they have a real partner who is going to follow through and do what they say they're going to do, that they're going to be a full-throated endorser of enablement programs. Like, that's a big risk, and that's half the battle. And so if you can show them and highlight real examples of how you've done that in the past, that truly takes you more than halfway down the field with them, because that big risk that they were running, you've kind of made them feel better about it. You show them that you're not just a sponsor name only, that you actually follow through. So I think that those concrete examples are really important. And if you don't have them today, you might want to start showing how you are an executive sponsor of it in action today, because those stories and those examples are really important for you to highlight. And if you don't have them, it can be a little bit tricky for a person who's a really seasoned person with a critical eye to want to take a leap and join your organization. Second thing I think about is org structure. And there's no right or wrong, and many permutations can work. But what I will say is I always talk about optimal versus suboptimal. And in my experience, the most optimal is when the head of enablement reports up to the head of revenue, or CRO. And that if that reporting structure is like that, that is where the real magic can happen, because you have alignment on priorities, on the problems, on the opportunities. Like, you are all lockstep. And that really is a critical component to being successful. What happens sometimes is the CRO has a very big org chart and they can't take on another direct. So they'll stick them under maybe an ops VP or under a sales leader. And you're in the right org, so that part is good, but you're disintermediated from the CRO. And so that creates some distance. You're not as aligned on priorities. Things get lost in translation, lost down the line, and it's suboptimal. And a lot of very seasoned enablement folks would not even consider a role where they're not reporting directly to the head of revenue. They won't even start the discussions. And so that third of the people who would not even consider it, those are the ones you typically will want. And so I think reporting structure is under you is key. Yes, it can live under ops, and yes, it can live under marketing and even HR. It can work. My view is it's just suboptimal, because enablement's always trying to be aligned with the revenue priorities and what's happening, have the finger on the pulse. And the more distance between the leader and the head of enablement, the more that distance becomes a problem. And so every enablement person wants a seat at the table, both literally and metaphorically. The other thing I think about is when you have an enablement leader, you want them to be your partner, and you want to have some trust there. And you want to know that you're going to work well together, and that your job stops here as CRO and their job starts here as head of enablement. And so what I mean by that is I think it's important for both people to align on the what. What are our priorities for this month, this quarter, this year, whatever the time frame is? You're going to align on the what, the priorities, the big things, the initiatives that you're working on. But then you want to let them figure out the how. The how do I get this done? Because again, they're the expert this enablement thing. And so you want to give them the latitude to do what they do and best practices. And if you're sort of tell them what to do and how to do it, that role goes from very strategic down to very tactical, and I'm just an order taker to a certain point. And so I think the more you can empower them to figure out how do I best accomplish this priority that we agreed upon, then they're going to feel the strategy, they're going to feel the partnership, and they're going to feel like they're really part of the solution to make a difference in this organization. What happens a lot of times is CROs get overly prescriptive or micromanagey, and that all of a sudden that it becomes a less fulfilling experience for the enablement person. So there's just a couple of quick things I think about for getting top talent, because in conversations, when CROs get these things wrong, all of a sudden their top choices pull out, or they won't even start conversations because of a couple of things they learn from the recruiter or from the org. And so I would keep those things in mind to do what you can to get the best talent out there. Thanks, everybody.